Hi, my name is Gary Schnell, and I'd like to welcome you back into my home near Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I've been doing a number of YouTube videos in an effort to highlight different elements of my book, Consciousness, All in One and One in All. This particular YouTube video will be the second part of chapter 8 in my book that has to do with what I've referred to in the first part as the intimate dance of consciousness and information, or the intimate dance of the acausal cause. This particular section will be a critique of the physicalists' viewpoint of consciousness and matter. Now, quantum physics is the most tried and true theory we have. It's been confirmed experimentally on many different levels. But there's a lot of confusion that exists regarding the theory because we don't quite know what to make of the observer or consciousness. And there are many different ways of looking at consciousness. For the physicalists, consciousness is what's referred to as an epiphenomenon of matter, or brain in this case. Epiphenomenon means that it's an extension of matter and brain, and is therefore secondary to matter and brain. Now, they are comfortable with this because it's the question on consciousness, for them is, what does consciousness mean? Does it mean a squirrel? Does it mean a tree? What exactly, does it mean? Does it require humans to make a conscious choice? And they are more comfortable with something that is what they view as more objective. Now, essentially, the core theory for the physicalists, something I certainly agree with, is that the nature of all the stuff in the universe is the vibration of quantum fields. That's the nature of the stuff. The question is that the nature of life and consciousness? We can. I'll talk about the stuff, but I'd like to ask you to consider that maybe the stuff can't explain consciousness. So as they look at the core theory, their best bet is that consciousness is an epiphenomenon of matter, and they are forced into an idea that involves something we call the many worlds theory, where every time we make a conscious decision, choice, what happens is the world splits off so that we remain in this world as a world that reflects an alternative choice, goes off in a different direction. Now, these worlds are not known to the original choice, so that I'm continuing to do this video. That's my choice. So this world is known. But in another world, at this point, I stop doing this video. That world then has me not doing the video, and I'm not aware of it. And in this other world, I'm not aware of me continuing the video. Now, what's particularly appealing is that the universe then is its own wave function. And the wave function includes our consciousness, so that when there is a decision, when there is a decoherence into another world, it is determined by the Schrödinger wave equation, a mathematical equation, which for them is more objective than my conscious experience or the experience of a squirrel or a bat or anything like that. And it's more objective because it's mathematical. Now, I need to ask you to be a little wary of this, because mathematics is not necessarily more objective. In fact, mathematics is an extension of our understanding of patterns in the world. For example, if catching a fly ball, the brain does very complicated calculus as a person sees the ball hit by the bat and then runs toward the area where the ball might fall and then catches it. There's any number of calculus solutions that are involved in catching that ball, and we do this every day, and we do this with everything. And so mathematics is not an impartial arbiter. It is the way we have of understanding patterns in the universe, and is very subjective. Now, one of the problems with this many worlds theory, in addition to the fact that we don't know it over here from over here, one world from the other, it can't be tested, it can't be validated, so it is its own metaphysics. But, you know, that's rather amazing in and of itself. But in addition to that, it, as I've argued so far in this book, information is continuously informing our consciousness and informing the cells of our body, our brains, so that there's no real distinction between where, or line in the sand where this information falls off and where I am continuously experiencing and making a choice. Like every second, for example, I am making the choice to continue this video because, you know, I don't perceive there's a fire in my house, and, you know, the phone's not ringing, the dog's not barking, so I can continue this video. I'm making a choice constantly to continue this video. It's not like, 10 minutes ago I decided to start this video and another world split off. It's that I'm continuing from moment to moment to make this video, processing all kinds of information as I make this video. So if we follow the many worlds idea, every decoherence or bit of information that becomes collapsed would result in a different world, as all that information is taken in to eventually a conscious choice. And when you consider that information that involves a conscious choice depends on all kinds of things in the environment, like a barking dog or like someone ringing the doorbell, my interaction with all these other people, the number of worlds that would have to be generated each moment is a very large amount. Let's put it like that. So there's a lot of problems with this idea that is essentially metaphysical in nature and beyond comprehension. So for the physicalists, matter is the source of consciousness, but for this to happen, it relies on what we call emergence. Now, emergence is likened to what are known as phase transitions. Now, an example of a phase transition, or a couple of phase transition, is the idea that water can exist as steam, water vapor. It can condense into water, and it can freeze into ice. Now, from steam to water is one phase transition, and from water to ice is another phase transition. And so what they're trying to invoke is this idea that through a number of phase transitions, eventually matter was able to give rise to consciousness. Now, the issue here is that they're relying on something called chaos theory or complexity theory for this to be the case, where the sum of the parts is greater than the parts themselves. Now, this was an idea that was originated by a meteorologist named Lorentz, and it's commonly known as the butterfly effect. And it is suggested that there is potential for the flapping wings of a butterfly to play a part in the generation of a hurricane. This is a theory that is invoked by not only meteorologists, but by epidemiologists, and has been invoked with some questionable results by the epidemiologists in the most recent coronavirus pandemic. And it is also used in economics. But I need to be clear that when we're talking about chaos theory, we're not talking about something new that's being generated. After all, the flapping of a butterfly produces a little bit of wind. A hurricane is a big bit of wind. And, in economics, we have, one part of economics becoming another part of economics. In epidemiology, we're talking about things like, diseases, disease rates, death rates. We're not talking about anything new. These are extensions of what is already there, nothing novel. And so we need to be clear on that. There is not something new like life and consciousness coming from matter that we can extend from this idea. Now, in all fairness, the chaos people, and I do believe there's merit to the chaos theory, but I don't believe there's merit from the standpoint of consciousness and life. But I believe that there's merit in the stuff of the universe becoming more complex stuff. And we'll talk about that, because there are models that support this idea. And what they do is they take different resources and they put them into a computer program such that as different resources are maximized, they hit a tipping point. And this combination of resources then will give increasing complexity, like the complexity of peptides, polypeptides, RNA, DNA. That's the idea that these models generate. Now, these are models. And at best, you would get into macromolecules like polypeptides in these models. And even if we got into DNA, we would have to explain how something inert like DNA can pick out or get out of the information around us this idea of consciousness and life. Now, DNA is a most complex molecule, to be fair, but it is a molecule, and the chemistry of it all does not have the punch, the necessary strength to give rise to something as miraculous and complex as life and consciousness. In looking at information theory, as it was originally generated by a fellow named Shannon back in the 40s, there's a need for predictability and there's a need for noise. And this is what the chaos theory people did when they developed these models. So we have a certain amount of predictability and a certain amount of noise. The chemistry of DNA is too predictable. It is chemistry. It has known laws. It has sodium and chloride form salt. It doesn't have the punch because it's too predictable. It doesn't have enough noise, so it doesn't have the the power and the strength to generate something like life and consciousness. Where do life and consciousness come from? How does something like DNA pull it out of the air? The idea, though, from these chaos theory folks is that once we had these models that allowed for increasing complexity and eventually DNA, well, of course we've explained life. I struggle with that because we've explained DNA, but I don't believe we've explained life, and I don't believe we've explained consciousness. Now the final question is, how do we generate consciousness from the stuff of the universe? I mean, consider this. We're talking about 4% of the universe. Matter makes up 4% of the universe. And we are talking about a most recent generation or genesis of stuff that we call matter as far as the universe goes. This matter does not constitute black holes or include black holes. It does not include dark energy. It does not include dark matter. And yet we are using this newfound stuff to explain something that is more amazing than black holes or dark energy or dark matter. We're using it to explain consciousness. We're using it to explain life. And if we're going to use something, let's use something that might include black holes, might include dark energy, might include dark matter, not something that excludes those things. So I think that the idea that the physicalists put forth is very limited, and it's its own metaphysics, and it has a number of flaws that make it no better than anything I'm talking about here. In fact, I think what I'm talking about here makes a heck of a lot more sense. Now, David Chalmers goes on to talk about the limits of stuff. He basically asserts, his first point is that stuff can do no more than give rise to form and structure. It's stuff. The second point he makes is that zombies are stuff that are just like us, theoretically. I mean, if there were such a thing as a zombie, if there were, they'd live in California. But if there were such a thing as a zombie, I'm just kidding anybody from California. If there were such a thing as a zombie, that zombie would not know if it was an exact replica of me. It would not know what it is to be me. It would not have my experience, my emotions. It would physically be exactly like me, but it would not have an understanding of me. So stuff of zombies does not give an understanding of my consciousness. The third argument he makes is one of, I can know everything there is to know about, I've talked about bats. So I can know everything there is to know about a bat. Everything. I know everything. I know every DNA strand. I know every twist and turn of histones. I know every behavior of a bat. That doesn't tell me what it is to be a bat. I cannot appreciate that bat's experience. In fact, as humans, we have a very egocentric viewpoint of consciousness that pretty much excludes the value of any other living creature's consciousness. So I hope you found this interesting. I thank you for your curiosity and attention. If there are questions, and I'm sure there probably are, please feel free to post them after this video. Otherwise, please feel free to subscribe. Thank you very much for your time, and be well. Take care. Stay healthy in these times. Bye now.